I want to start today's session with a story. And if you are anything like my kids, you would love stories too. Now, here's a story about the fox and the cat. Now, think about this in this way. The fox was always a sly guy who loved to come into the woods and boast about all the different ways that he was able to escape. He could do different things, he could do more than just climb trees, and he could really find different ways because of how agile he was trying to tell people that he would always be able to escape the hunters. And then there was the cat. The only thing that he could do was to climb trees, and that was the only thing that he was good at. One day the hunters came, and true enough, the fox decided that he had so many different things that he could do. However, with the cat, she knew that one of the only things that she could do was to climb up the tree. And from that, can you guess which animal managed to escape the hunters? The fox never really made it because he got caught in decision fatigue trying to figure out which was the best plan, just because for him, he knew that he had so many different skills under his belt, but he was not sure what to execute with. While the cat had one way and she knew exactly what to do. Now, why is it that I'm sharing this story with you today? If you are creative like me, then most likely you are also collecting lots and lots of different things. Whether it's inspiration, whether it's technique, whether it's tutorials, or even supplies, we want to have it all. We feel like the more the merrier. Maybe if we have more, it also helps us to be more inspired. Or maybe with more, it also means that, we have more options. There's so many different reasons why more is better. However, when you are faced with more, one of the things that comes into our way is that we are faced with decision fatigue. What if we just have one option and one thing to think of or choose or focus on? That is going to change the way we actually approach things because of how simple it is instead of having more. It's easy to think that accumulating strategies is going to really help us someday, one day, to tackle the blank page with a lot more confidence. However, this is also the part where having more armor doesn't exactly mean that we will be able to meet the page with the exact same confidence that we thought. So if you're thinking that maybe I am not practicing enough, maybe I lack discipline, or worse, talent, I just don't have it, I will not have it, and I will not allow you to give yourself these reasons any longer. In fact, I think what's going on is the fact that most of us are drowning in all the different options, the different decisions that we have with regard to creating. And really, the more limited our supplies and the less we have, the clearer and easier it would be for us to hear ourselves. So the way I see it, I don't think that your voice is buried. I don't think that it's not because you can't hear it. Rather, I feel like it is just buried under. And really, it takes a little bit of time to just practice listening and starting to notice what you are feeling for and what your art feels for you. In the next section, I want to share with you how overwhelm looks like across different stages. Now, as we know, we all learn in different stages. Whether you're a beginner, an advanced beginner, an intermediate, all of these different stages will experience different levels of overwhelm. However, what I've done is I've created a 5-stage framework to help artists understand where exactly they are. And this is the same 5-stage framework that I use within my community called Brush Movement, where I help artists to learn how to paint freely. Now, in this 5-stage framework, it will also allow you to not only identify the skills that you need, but also your next step in what to focus on. So if you are keen to know what your stage is, click the link in the description below so that we can help you to identify what your stage is. Now, if you're ready, I can't wait for you to see and maybe relate to some of the different stages of overwhelm that some of us might face with the way in which we are burying our own voices. If you're in stage 1, I cannot emphasize this enough. I feel like so many of us are so drawn into completion. We are drawn into thinking that the best way to learn is by following something step by step all the way to the end. Now, here is where I invite you to pause and really just take the time to get to know the mediums. Understanding how you hold your brush, the way in which things pan out and play as you are moving water on your paper. All of these explorations are so important. Instead of thinking that you need to try everything, here is the thing that I want you to start with. To choose that one class and stick with it for 1 week, so that you really get to know what exactly is happening in the video, understanding and breaking down the parts of the painting as you are practicing, be it a tutorial or a class that you have been following. This way, you are just focusing on how watercolor works and sometimes maybe even focusing on a single subject, like just painting leaves or stems. So this really isn't the time to complete your painting, but as you can see, I want to encourage you to just play, maybe even be mixing colors, understanding how colors interact with each other. Don't mistake creative productivity with completion, because in stage 1, your job is to set the stage, the foundation, understanding the emotions that come with creating, and also building that strong relationship with your own creative voice and the way in which you work and handle your materials. Now, if you're in stage 2, I suspect you might be binging tutorials, saving playlists, maybe going to stalk some of your favorite artists, finding out what their recommended tools are to see where you can find the next best brush. Now, this is really the stage where you are trying to bring all of this information together, piece it, and then at the same time, all of this information that you're building up can either lead into overwhelm, where there is decision fatigue, or it could also dilute your voice. Now, here is where I want to encourage you. Instead of working through that, let's just be making marks. We want you to just focus on, again, developing playfulness, but this time moving from stage 1, we are trying to develop something meaningful. Now in stage 1, really we are just playing and understanding how the tools worked. So you would hear that I did not say anything about creating anything meaningful yet. But at stage 2, as you are making marks, maybe start to recognize marks that could represent petals or leaves or stems, and start to notice how to create meaningful marks on your paper, creating them around an imaginary center, and then start thinking about mixing and matching colors. Now, this is really still a very playful stage, and in order for you to apply what you already know, this is all about getting the space to put pen to paper instead of waiting for instructions from someone. Learning does not have to be passive. You get to be an active participant, and the best way to do so is to grab your brush, your paper, your paints, sit down and start making marks. If you've been painting for a while, maybe hoarding a little bit too much supplies, probably thought about all the different brushes that you have bought and tried and maybe not spent enough time with, this is where we get so overloaded with so much of information, rules, right and wrong way of doing things, and sometimes the consumption of information and ideas on social media doesn't exactly help us in our self-taught journey. Instead of feeling inspired, the overwhelm really starts to creep in, and there is a pressure that is sitting on our shoulders because suddenly we feel even more blocked instead of inspired. Instead of painting, we start doubting our own choices because of so many different right ways that we have started to see, and we want to try and create that perfect scenario or perfect painting. But here is where I want to encourage you to scale down and do something simple. Start focusing on just one skill that you really want to work on. It could be as simple as this, where we are just sketching out floral shapes, understanding the different directions of florals, or seeing where shadows are falling when it comes to a reference photo. I've always found it helpful to pull out a simple reference photo and try and sketch out shapes instead of flowers. This really helps to ground me and helps me to practice the art of observation, which is a very important technique that so many artists overlook. Observation does not need to just come from observing another person's tutorial, but it could be just observing what's in front of you on your paper. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. This is about just taking your materials and putting it down. And as you can see so far in the last few stages that we have talked about, the same emphasis goes into trying to put action into your paper instead of letting the doubt starting to cloud your perspective of your abilities, and noticing that all of those thoughts of inadequacy can fade away the moment you start to show up. So by the time you get to stage 5 and 4, I think one of the things that we need to start doing is to take out your artwork and really just take a look at it. Ask yourself, what are some of the common themes that you are noticing? Maybe even identify if there are specific styles that you might be leaning towards. What are the things that you are currently exploring now? Or perhaps maybe what colors that you really love and lean towards. Now here is really an important point, because when you're talking about an identifiable signature, what you're really referring to is really understanding what exactly you are able to do, and also kind of leaning into the arena of how experimental are you willing to go to create your paintings. At this stage, you are now filtering so much better. However, there is still this nagging question that you might have, wondering if you have found your signature. Is there something recognizable about your art? And there is always going to be this nagging feeling where you are wondering whether or not you need to develop originality. Now, here is the part where instead of wondering what they are saying or what they recognize, the question has to flip and change into what do I want to express and how do I want to feel. You need to look at your last 5 paintings and start to bring out the one that gives you the most amount of joy. Find out why and how exactly you managed to create some of these paintings, which part lights you up. And this is also the time in your own painting practice where you really understand what it means by trust the process. This is probably the age where you begin to start seeing the true form of watercolor come to life, where you are able to stack and mix and match different techniques to create your own composition. Now, this is a class that is from Brush Movement Collective that our stage 4 and 5 artists get to do, where we are painting our own bouquet. all of the videos that you have seen so far are focused classes that have been featured inside of Brush Movement Collective, just because we have different goals and desires, and each of these classes have been crafted in a way to curate into different artists' desires where it comes to specific skills that they want to develop. So with all of this in mind, the biggest question that I want you to walk away from this video is to start asking yourself, what do I love about expressing myself? And how do I want to express myself more so that my voice can begin to feel heard? So there was a year that I was also buried in many options. I had 10 brushes, I probably had too much paint, and I was finding every single supply I could in the hope of actually finally painting loosely, and what I realized was that this was a symptom of me trying to fix my problem. And the problem at that time was that I could not paint loosely. I just could not understand the method to this madness. I just could not figure out why all of these beginner-friendly tutorials just did not sit with me. Now, with that difficulty in mind, I think one of the things that I started to do was to go and find the next best recommended supply, buy it, and hope that it actually transforms my painting. But I think what was lacking underneath all of that was the ability for me to actually observe and pay attention to how I was doing things. Those foundational skills is often what many of us neglect because we are focusing so much on what we are hoping to get at the end, the outcome. And if we do not pay attention to our experience, this is where we start to dilute our own voice. So I hope that from today's episode, you got to see how I wanted to normalize overwhelm across the different stages, but at the same time, I also want to give you the possibility that you have a job to do, and that really is to be able to pay attention to what you want and what you have within yourself so that you are finally able to start applying the things that you already know with the tools that you already have into your painting. I don't think you're the kind of artist who wants to keep going where you are wondering if this art looks like yours or belongs to you. And where you have questions like this, depending on what stage you are in, well, I did a video the other day about why tutorials are an essential part of your learning. I want to invite you to now really just tune into what you are capable of so that you can finally start to see things in a way that feels free as you are painting.